Imagine drinking a thick milkshake through a cocktail straw. Now imagine someone pinching that straw flat, coating the inside with industrial glue, and telling you that if you don't pull enough air through it every 4 seconds, your heart will stop. You wake up at 3 in the morning to a sound that doesn't feel human. It's a dry, high-pitched whistle scraping up from the bottom of your throat. Sitting up doesn't help. The bedroom is freezing, the air is rich with oxygen, yet you are suffocating in your own bed. You reach for your rescue inhaler, shake it with trembling fingers, press the canister, and inhale deeply. Nothing. You take another puff. Still nothing. The medicine cannot reach the fire because the hallways are already collapsing. Your rib cage heaves, your shoulders hike toward your ears, and an ancient alarm bell deafens your brain. What actually happens inside your body when an asthma attack turns lethal? And what does it really feel like when your lungs simply refuse to let you exhale? To understand how an asthma attack kills, you have to look at the bronchial tree, an inverted labyrinth of branching airways that starts at your trachea and splits into increasingly microscopic tubes called bronchioles. At the tips of these branches sit hundreds of millions of tiny air sacs called alveoli, where oxygen diffuses into your bloodstream and carbon dioxide crosses back out to be exhaled. Wrapped around every single one of those flexible bronchial tubes is a delicate lattice of smooth muscle tissue. In a healthy body, these muscles quietly adjust diameter to regulate airflow like a well-calibrated ventilation grid. But inside an asthmatic, the immune system treats mundane particles, a speck of dust, cold winter air, cat dander, a mild viral infection, or emotional stress, like a lethal parasitic invasion. Mast cells and eosinophils nestled in the airway lining detonate a biochemical bomb, dumping massive waves of histamine, leukotrienes, and prostaglandins into surrounding tissue. This sparks a brutal 3-part cascade. Smooth muscles contract violently in bronchospasm, the airway lining swells with inflammatory fluid like a severe bee sting, and specialized goblet cells churn out thick, rubbery mucus. When this inflammatory triad locks into place and refuses to respond to standard bronchodilators, doctors call it status asthmaticus. This is the physiological point of no return. What makes an asthma death biologically strange and horrifying is that the primary danger isn't that you can't get air in, it's that you can't get air out. Because of respiratory mechanics, your chest wall and diaphragm can exert immense negative pressure to forcibly suck air past swollen obstructions during inhalation. But exhalation is naturally a passive, elastic process. When you try to push the air back out through those narrowed, mucus-choked channels, the rising pressure inside your chest actually compresses the floppy airway walls further, snapping them shut like one-way valves. Every breath you fight to pull in becomes trapped inside. This is known as dynamic hyperinflation, or severe air trapping. With each desperate gasp, your lungs inflate larger and larger, stretching against the inside of your ribs until they are hard as stone. You are literally choking on stale air that your body cannot purge. As fresh oxygen is locked out and toxic carbon dioxide accumulates, your blood turns dangerously acidic, while your overinflated lungs physically compress the great veins feeding your heart. Minute 0. The trigger lands, or an ongoing flare crosses the threshold into catastrophic obstruction. Mast cells degranulate, releasing chemical mediators that send your bronchial smooth muscle into an iron grip. You feel a sudden tightness across your chest, like an invisible leather strap being ratcheted around your ribs. You reach for your albuterol inhaler, expecting rapid relief, but the swelling is already too advanced. The aerosol droplets bounce uselessly off swollen tissue in your upper throat, never reaching the lower branches. Minutes 1 to 10. Your respiratory rate spikes from 14 breaths a minute to well over 30. Your heart races beyond 120 beats per minute as adrenaline floods your bloodstream to force the airways open. Every breath produces a harsh, musical wheeze that echoes across the room. You instinctively lean forward, resting your hands on your knees in the classic tripod position, recruiting every accessory muscle in your neck, shoulders, and abdomen just to drag air into your chest. Your speech is reduced to broken, single-word gasps. Your nail beds and lips begin to turn a pale, ghostly lavender as your peripheral oxygen saturation drops below 90%. Minutes 10 to 30. The muscle fatigue is catastrophic. Breathing is not supposed to require brutal physical labor, but your diaphragm is now burning through your body's entire glycogen reserve. As air trapping reaches critical levels, the frantic wheezing paradoxically begins to quiet down. This is the terrifying medical phenomenon known as the silent chest. It does not mean you are recovering, it means so little air is moving in and out of your lungs that there is no longer enough flow to generate a sound. Your carbon dioxide levels skyrocket, causing profound respiratory acidosis. Your blood pH plummets, your vision tunnels into darkness, and severe confusion sets in as your brain drowns in metabolic waste. The final stage, your heart rhythm begins to destabilize under the dual assault of severe hypoxemia and extreme mechanical pressure. With each attempted inhale, your pulse temporarily vanishes in a phenomenon called pulsus paradoxus. Suddenly, the agonizing sensation of suffocation begins to dull. Dangerous levels of carbon dioxide act as a potent chemical anesthetic, plunging you into carbon dioxide narcosis. Your respiratory drive, which has been screaming in panic for half an hour, finally burns out. Your head drops back. Your breathing slows from erratic gasps to agonal, fish-out-of-water twitches. The heart slips into pulseless electrical activity, and the brain slips into permanent, silent darkness. From your perspective, dying from an asthma attack is a relentless psychological and physical siege. The terrifying part is the absolute betrayal of your own instincts. Your primal survival reflex tells you to breathe harder and faster, but the harder you try to breathe, the more trapped air you pack into your already bursting lungs, speeding up your own mechanical failure. If you are still conscious in those middle stages, the sheer physical exhaustion is unlike anything you have ever experienced. Imagine performing maximum effort push-ups without stopping for 20 straight minutes while someone holds a wet towel over your face. Every single breath requires an agonizing act of pure willpower. Your neck muscles ache, your intercostal muscles cramp, and your ribs feel bruised from the inside. Your brain is trying to understand why taking a deep breath provides zero relief. You feel an unbearable sensation known as air hunger, a suffocating claustrophobia where your chest is full to bursting, yet your brain is starving for oxygen. Then, near the end, the panic mysteriously evaporates. The crushing pain gives way to a heavy, drunken detachment as carbon dioxide blankets your cortex, turning terror into a numb, dreamlike surrender. The difference between how this unfolds comes down to two distinct clinical phenotypes: slow-onset asthma versus sudden asphyxic asthma. In the sudden asphyxic version, which is the absolute worst nightmare, massive hyperreactive bronchospasms clamp your entire airway tree shut within minutes. You go from feeling mildly congested to total respiratory arrest on the kitchen floor before emergency services can even dispatch an ambulance. There is no time for the lungs to fill with mucus. The airway muscles simply clamp shut like hydraulic vice grips. On the other hand, the protracted version, classic status asthmaticus, is a grueling multi-hour endurance test. In this scenario, the airway passages are progressively cemented shut with dense, crystallized mucus plugs over many hours or days. While this slower timeline gives medical teams a chance to administer continuous nebulizers, intravenous steroids, magnesium, and mechanical ventilation, it transforms dying into a slow, conscious marathon of suffocation. In real life, fatal asthma is shockingly prevalent. Despite modern medicine, cutting-edge biologic therapies, and fast-acting inhalers, asthma claims roughly 400,000 lives across the globe every single year. The vast majority of these deaths do not occur in remote wilderness settings, but in domestic bedrooms and living rooms. Tragedies frequently strike individuals who underestimate the severity of their chronic condition, run out of medication, or suffer from sudden exposure to unrecognized triggers like thunderstorm asthma, where storm updrafts shatter pollen grains into microscopic, deeply inhalable fragments that overwhelm thousands of people at once. History and modern emergency rooms show that youth, wealth, and general fitness offer zero immunity when your bronchial smooth muscles decide to declare war on the outside air. Despite decades of pulmonary research, scientists are still grappling with major biological enigmas surrounding fatal asthma. One of the most dangerous and actively studied phenomena is blunted perception of dyspnea. For reasons medicine does not fully understand, a significant subset of severe asthmatics possess defective sensory feedback loops. They cannot accurately sense when their airways are closing. While a normal person feels intense panic when their lung function drops by 20%, these individuals can drop by 60% and report feeling completely fine right up until their respiratory system suddenly collapses. Pulmonologists also debate the exact genetic drivers that cause some patients to produce unusually dense mucus plugs that resist every known bronchodilator, creating an impenetrable physical blockage that even intensive care ventilators cannot overcome. Dying of an asthma attack is not a peaceful slip into the void. It is an exhausting, desperate duel against your own hyperreactive biology, where your lungs trap the very atmosphere you need to survive. It is a sobering reminder that the line between life and suffocation is a micro-thin layer of smooth muscle that can turn hostile in an instant. Next time you take a clear, easy breath of fresh air, be grateful your lungs haven't decided to lock the doors from the inside. Like and subscribe if you enjoy terrifying science explained way too clearly.